Our first presenter is Noah Humphrey, a first-year Masters of Divinity student at Yale Divinity School, whose work and ministry explores holistic care and neo-spiritualism. Noah's presentation is entitled Christianity and the Ecological Effect on Medical Kahuna in Native Hawaii. Welcome, Noah, and please take it away.
Got you. I'm so blessed to be here now. So share my screen. Just point and it goes. Hello, my name is Noah Humphrey, as I said before, and again, this is my project, Christianity and the Ecological Effect on Medical Kahuna in Native Hawaii. And I would also like to thank Mele Donaldson from University of Hawaii, Manoa, for her contributions to this work. I wouldn't have been able to get this research done without her help. And as a native Hawaiian herself, it has truly enlightened me and given me a lot of found foundation for what I needed. And the objectives is to show how medical kahuna reside in the heart of Hawaii and how the contributions in the midst of missionaries, commercialism, colonialism, and all those factors turn a way in which the medical kahuna could also thrive and also give themselves a place of peace. And again, I want to remind observers that Hawaii is a sovereign nation that is illegally occupied, and that Kanaka Maoli, which is the native Hawaiians, have had their ideologies and healthcare system ruptured by colonialism. And again, acknowledgements of the land. I am not native Hawaiian, not by blood, not by any means. And again, I want to discuss to you about the plastic aloha, which is not what it seems. The culture over here is also alive. It is thriving as well. But there's also a need to know the land and also like the blood shed here as well too. And I wish to devote my energy into hoping to help Hawaii gain the independence that it needs as well too, through this presentation, but also through the community service in which I do as well. And again, a kahuna. What is a kahuna? So again, kahuna are respected leaders of morality. They are the ones that craft the mana. They are the ones that bring the ike and also bring manoa, which is wisdom and knowledge through an oral translation. They are the ones that help bring the consultants. They are the forebearers of knowledge. And again, what makes medical kahuna lead is that because they specialize in medicine itself, they aspire to build change and also to heal within the works of the land, but also the mind, body, and soul as well too. There have been multiple techniques made from in which native Hawaiians are of the source. And the picture right there, as you see, is from noni, which is a fruit here. And again, it has super qualities that can be seen as superfood itself. And again, the ecological effects on medical kahuna as well too. Mauna Kea is an example of this, as in the multiple telescopes on the land itself, and how there's a fight to retain the sacredness, because again, Mauna Kea is the zenith of Hawaiian spirituality. This is actually a place in which their ancestors and also spiritual selves of them grow, and also combining in a force that makes native Hawaiians so unique in way, because they're so impactful. And I want to note that in 1819, King Kamehameha II abolished the kahu system, a set of sacred laws that have gathered mana, but also ensure that there was peace and also equality within native Hawaii itself. And in 1865, the Hawaiian Board of Health was established to examine native Hawaiians' fitness to practice. So, but actually, kahuna weren't given none until 1868 by King Kamehameha V. And I want you to note that between 1873 and 1878, only 14 Kanaka passed the test. 14 native Hawaiian kahunas passed. But between like the King Kalakaua, which also appointed different board members as well. During his reign from 1874 to 1891, 300 kahuna received their life sentences. So again, there was hundreds of kahunas barred from like this practice of helping their land, and they had to pay fees, and there was fines. And again, this is where I say the missionaries in Hawaii as well too. The missionaries led to the kahu system being abolished itself too, because again, within the system as well was also a break down of laws. KK2, which is King Ing, like Mayor the Sad, was actually convinced to abolish the system because his aunt turned to Christianity herself. And the kahuna had to go underground with their cultural practice to avoid persecution, but they also had to work with the Christian God, as in a God that they were not familiar with, as in they were always expressing the energy of but once like they seen the prayers of what the missionaries did, it didn't relate it to the breath. They didn't see it as mana itself. And they had to work with the foreign like plants there because again, the integration of colonialism damaged a lot of like the plants there. So like the original Hawaiian medicine that was originally there had to be rectified. It had to be created because of these effects against like the land, because of because of the demolition of crops and also the land itself. And what I want to take is Gugiwa Diango, which is decolonizing the mind. And one like quote that I want to break down is English became the main determinant of a child's progress up the ladder of formal education. The royals took a lot of what is seen within the culture and they used that to pry away the native ones from their own root, from their own lane. And again, Gugi shows to break colonial ties, as in deconstructing, also throwing like the systems in place as well. But the Kahuna fought not only for the heritage as well, but also to fight against the translations sweeping them away. They had to fight against the times in which they actually weren't being considered as ample medical practitioners. Even though between their own like people, they were considered these things. And again, the ecology. I just wanted to talk more so about this is because ecology, colonialism, and like Gugi neck more so because the land, the culture, how like the laws restrict the language, the culture, and the cultivation of land is what's seen within Gugi's time as well, like too, because his like language of Ikuyu, a language spoken of the Bantu family as well within like Kenya as well, was also taken over as well. There was bans against speaking his own language. He actually became alienated within his own land, similar to what native Hawaiians are today as well, by having 95% of food being shipped here by like having by like also having subpar education systems as well in order like to teach the children Hawaiian. And again, the intersections of Kahuna and Gugi's work is to locate the healing, is to note the disease, where we see the patriarchy, where we see the banishment of land, of just pushing like people out from different areas itself, such as what like we see with native like wines being like moved to actually build tourist places here. But if we take a part of what the medical kahuna do, which I refer to as quasi-directional healing, as in healing in multiple areas while also tending to one the self, the people can come first and also the land take care of itself as well because the people are connected to the land. And again, when you search the land, you take away the culture. The colonists that placed the power of language on like to paper to record the history, it became more than a language. Gugi noted that with his people, English became more than a language. It was the language, and all others had to bow before it in like the ferns, using Oleho Hawaii, which is Hawaiian, the language as a like as a productive tool allows for this change to stop, allows for people to reinvent themselves within like the culture, and also to take back those areas in which were like placed to hold them back to begin with. And again, the image right here is a man who has spoken native Hawaiian in a Hawaiian court and was charged because of it. The judges didn't know how to speak his language. They didn't know how to understand him at all. And again, this is what is, can aloha aina be achieved? And the love of the land be done? Because the Native Hawaiians will never cede to militarism, and they will always battle within a colonial stage as well too, and to transcend Glugi's view of colonial alienation as well. We had to continue to find a way that language heals. We had to continue to build these processes and also these growths as well in order to better ourselves. And again, the spiritual leaders are needed because they are needed to remove the concepts of what is good for the land and how to reciprocate these feelings of how we can better the land itself through taking away imperialist means. And again, those who come here, Hollywood, which also means foreigners as well, should respect the land. As in, the true revolution is about making sure that the heart and soul of the Native Hawaiian people stay intact. That like no matter what changes are like involved, it will still remain the same no matter what, because this is their land, this is their home. And no matter what, we have to continue to respect that and also to help with the revolution itself. And I wanted to end my presentation more so with, the past two quotes that I have. And this is, in colonial conquest, language determined what the sword did to the bodies of the colonized Yango. And I want to reference from Professor Noah Goodyear Ka'apo, who is a native like Hawaiian and a lifetime participant in Hawaiian movements as a professor of political science at University of Hawaii. Noah, let's strive to keep our nation alive. Let's strive to keep our language alive. Let's strive to preserve the good of the islands so that the righteousness may continue to be with us all. That's good in the islands. It's so important to keep this and also to keep the land, the body, and also the spirit intact. And lastly, I just want to end with Carmela's quote, in which we delve during the revisions of this. And she said, "We must dive into the earth, grow into the land, and work with grassroots and political groups." Books doesn't give you all the knowledge about Hawaii. It is activism, community work, mindfulness on the land that does. Thank you for your time.
Great, Noah. Thank you so much for your presentation. I think there are some questions. Oh, so good. Thank you for that. Great. I have a question I can kick us off with, and then I can open it up to people in the room. I think I'm struck by the interconnectedness and that you point out between the colonization of plants, language, and culture. And I'm wondering how the religious plurality in Hawaii and those who have multiple identities as both Native and Christian, how that kind of is thought about, or how you think about that within your work, and also within Hawaiian medical revitalization and that project.
One thing to do is learn. It's very there's so many answers involved, but it's about being a participant in the struggle itself. As in, even though I am from a diasporic race, I am African American, I cannot relate to the struggles here fully. But what I can know is that through reading, through also hearing and talking story, as in giving the people of the land the stories, giving them time to say, how do you feel about this? Not just going in and saying, Hawaii is great because of this. Oh, look at the aloha. Look at this around here. It's so beautiful. It's but if you talk to a Native Hawaiian and you look them directly in the eye and say, what is this land to you? some will cry, some will laugh, some will, it's very emotional because again, they are deeply connected to this land. So for people to read, for like people to give the information back like the way I do, it is such a blessing and also a fulfillment of mana for like myself as well too. Because again, it makes sure that it stays intact. As in, I am not just here as a tourist. I'm here to give back everything I can to the land itself. And like for me to present this as well, it is such a blessing as well, because I want to thank my teachers. I want to thank the people who have given me, the ancestors as well, the power to do this as well. Because to tell a story and also to give facts about a story is so important. And I believe it's so important as a Christian to note that colonialism is a part of our history, but it is also important to know that we have a chance to heal, that we can do healing in our own frameworks to give ourselves a better definition of what it means to be a servant of God.
Thank you, Noah. That was really a powerful response to my question. Are there any questions from the group? Feel free to jump in.
Oh, wait a sec. Before I do that, shout out to my shout out to my big Connie Morales. Again, she is one of like the people that have really helped me so like far, and I wouldn't have done anything. I wouldn't have gotten to this point without her.
Yes, Nathan.
Yeah, no, this is such a good presentation. I'm also from the islands, from Guam, so it's I came here to support someone else who's presenting, and I'm so happy to have seen this presentation. This was awesome. I have one question that I've always been pondering about. I'm curious about what are your thoughts around reconciling kind of indigenous diasporic traditions in the islands with kind of the Christian tradition? If people do choose into participating in a Christian spirituality or tradition or imagination, whatever that looks like, what does it mean? Is it possible that both of those can synthesize and come together? And what does it look like to occupy both spaces where we honor not only our indigeneity, but also our kind of own Christian tradition that has come from colonization?
One thing that we must do is focus on the prayer, focus on the most basic aspect, and then also expand as well too. And as a participant of Native Hawaiian ceremonies myself, I'm seeing that there's so many comparisons, but also it's about the heart, as in what do you give? Come with an open mind. If I was a Native Hawaiian coming to a Christian space, come with it in an open mind. If I was a Christian coming to a Native Hawaiian space, come with an open mind. Being like mindful to the agreements and also the disagreements as well too is so like important, because when we actually refer to Akua, it's like, oh God, it's like, yeah, we're just praying to Akua. It's like, yeah, that's God. It's like, oh, so it's like this, like a sand and which of different meanings and like context as well too. And it's so important to love. It's so important to say, no matter what, I love you. I respect you. I respect your culture. By giving your 100%, by giving your acknowledgements to the people behind you, to like the people beside you, and like the people that will come after you, that brings that focus in, because Jesus didn't just save his life for the Christians. They saved him for everybody else. As in how we see our faith translated, it's just a certain bit of components that once they get together, we see the picture as well. And it's so important that we know the history, as in it isn't hiding from like the past, as in this did happen. Christianity was used as a tool of colonialism. And unfortunately, it is like still being used as that. But we use that also as a component to heal and say, we are going to do as much as we can. We cannot forget the past, but we can forge our way to a better future.